An August kitchen is definitely a working kitchen as a homemaker, and I guess you would say homesteader since I garden quite a bit. So my kitchen is filled with what I am working on right now. The canned goods, the needing to restock my pantry, the jams, all the fresh produce that is being preserved, and doing some quick and simple meals that are still nourishing for the family but use that beautiful produce that is prevalent. It is preservation time for the homemaker and homesteader, as many of you know, or even just the simple gardener like I truly am myself. So the pickles had been done the night before. Now I'm actually making some kombucha. So the working kitchen for me includes a lot of facets of life, like canning and preserving, which are things that not everybody does, making a lot of my foods and drinks from scratch, like kombucha. I received this starter from a friend, and boy, was it large and massive, but I'm excited to see how it produces because my other starter just was having some issues, I think. In my kitchen and my home, we buy in bulk. So my cheese is often bought from Azure Standard. I do have a link that you can use if you would be interested in purchasing through my link. So I get a little bit of a benefit if you use that in the description box. But anyways, I get a lot of my products from Azure that are in bulk. And I love that about being a homemaker and actually being more frugal, because you buy in bulk. I freeze some of this cheese, then eat some fresh, and it truly saves money when you know you're going to use it. If it's going to be wasted, don't go ahead and do what I'm doing. But if you know you can get through all of this, then just buy in bulk and make it work for your family. And that's another thing about my kitchen is I use what we have, and including all the fresh produce from the garden, also buying from the farm stands and our local Hutterites. So I purchased 20 pounds of green beans because my green beans did not grow this year. And I really felt like I wanted to preserve the beans this year, knowing I didn't get that many preserved last year, and I wanted us to have extra this year and maybe even into the next year for our family of 5. So I have this box that my whole family helped with it on this particular day, and it was so nice to be able to work through it in the outdoors and use the space outside as well. But it was just such a nice thing to be able to preserve. Time consuming, of course, as any preservation is. And that's just this whole week. A lot of preserving. And like I said, some simple meals in between to satisfy my family. Because when you're preserving, you don't want to be stressing about what to feed the family. So simple is best. And now I'll be pressure canning my green beans as well. If canning frightens you a little bit or you're intimidated by it, don't be. I've done the process of doing one new thing a year in canning to learn a bit more. I grew up with a mother who canned produce and meat. She even taught some 4-H classes on canning, and I never was in 4-H, but I learned through her on what to do and how to can. But when you get on your own, it's really when you learn the most, because you have to try it yourself. And so green beans I did last year, so this isn't new to me, but every time I start my pressure canner, I'm like, all right, is it gonna work? Is the pressure gonna rise to where it's supposed to be? And then I gotta make sure to keep my eye on it. Little guy's eating all the beans too there. Sometimes it's hard to do when you have interruptions of maybe needing to go nurse or take care of little ones. So make sure you got the time to monitor it or have someone else help you monitor the gauge so it stays at the correct pressure. All right, I also got a lug of peaches to preserve and can because it's peach season. Like I said, it's just all the fresh produce right now in August here that need preserving. So I am making a honey sweetened peach jam. The recipe can be found over on my blog, daviekillian.com, for rhubarb jam, but it's exactly the same recipe other than switch out the rhubarb for the peach. This recipe is multifaceted with any fruit that you desire, or mixing fruits. I mean, you could do peach strawberry, peach rhubarb, and there's my bulk honey. Sadly, it's getting close to the bottom, and I've had it. It's 24 pounds of honey, and I've used it all throughout the year so far. So about 8 months of having this honey, and it's time for me to find some more, because I definitely go through the honey when we make the jam. But anyways, I enjoy using jam in our family because it's a natural way to sweeten your breads, to use on the foods that you enjoy on crackers. I have not bought store-bought jam in 3 to 4 years. So it's just a fun thing to make. And actually, if you want to start preserving, start with jam. It's really easy. You only have to use a hot water bath, or sometimes in my instance, a stock pot. So if you want to start somewhere, use my jam recipe and follow the directions on how to can that, because you can do it if you're interested, or you can make it refrigerator jam or even freeze some of the jam. You don't have to can it, but I always think shelf stable is nice just in case. So even though I've been preserving jam for many years, I still have issues. The lid came off of this little guy and it got water in it. So I just drained the water, stuck it in the fridge, and we ate that jam as refrigerator jam. So it didn't get canned. But even the experienced preservation person, I guess you'd say, can have issues. Anyways, we are moving on to the next project of sweet corn. So I grew my own sweet corn, which is so fun to have fresh and to enjoy when it lasts, because it does not last very long. And so we are having some with our meal, and honestly, we've had it the entire week, some fresh sweet corn. But hey, it's okay. It's fun to enjoy it on the cob because that's a special treat, and we know where it's grown in our garden. And so sharing some with the little guy while I'm making some more because he was hungry. And then I do preserve some of this too. I just freeze it. I cut it off the cob, put it in, this time you'll see I put it in a vacuum sealer, and then stick it in our deep freeze, which is wonderful to have. In my working kitchen, there are lots of devices that need to be used. Like you saw, the stove, the oven, the canners. I also use this vacuum sealer because it makes food last so much longer. It's nice to have. Yes, freezer bags work too, because you'll see me later on use freezer bags, but I feel like the produce stays much longer in a vacuum sealed bag. In my kitchen, my very busy kitchen, which is used for everything, because it is a small home, we're in there a lot, I'm making lots of food, I need to restock some of my pantry staples. So baking soda, my cocoa powder, my oats, and later on I'll do my flours, my wheat flour, my einkorn flour, my white flour. It's important to have a well-stocked pantry in a working kitchen. I always have extra on hand down in my food storage room because that's important too. Living in a small town, not close to any place, I buy bulk. I make sure to always have those staples on hand because I can't just run to a store and get what I need. Yes, we do have a small store, but it's expensive to get from smaller stores most often. So just making sure to have staples on hand. And other staples I have are good quality noodles and canned tuna, canned salmon, because today's food we are having in meal is tuna casserole or tuna hot dish, whatever you call it. And so I just use some organic noodles with some good quality tuna, some of our raw milk in there, shredded cheese. I don't use cream of mushroom soup or cream of celery soup. That's not in my pantry, as I feel like it's better to just go from scratch. So I just make a roux with my garlic and onion, sometimes mushrooms in there, my milk, and then you mix it all together. And I added some fresh parsley from the garden, and a 30-minute meal can be served up in no time when you have some of those staples in your pantry, in your working kitchen. Of course, had to have the green beans, the corn, and enjoy that meal. Now it's time to make some honey sweetened pickled beets. So the beets are from Azure Standard again, as my beets did not grow well in my garden this year. Then I have some sweet bread, some applesauce bread on the counter there that will need to go into the oven. That recipe's over on my blog. And then it's time to restock the flours, like I mentioned. My kitchen is always being used for baking, so the flours are important to have, especially when I'm a sourdough baker and make other things for friends and family to enjoy. And here is my working kitchen at the moment. The sourdough bread is rising, peach jam, canned beans, the flours that I use and are filled, the soap that needs to be refilled in the dispenser, clean dishes in the sink, tomatoes, flowers, and beets. So that is a working kitchen for you. Not always clean and clear, lots of produce, lots of things on the counter at certain times, always dishes to do or clean dishes in the sink drainer or in the dishwasher. So now the beets are getting put into their pint-sized jars after they have been peeled, and then the brine of apple cider vinegar, honey, and water and some cloves will go over top of those, and they will be canned in a hot water bath. And this time I do use a larger hot water bath instead of just a stock pot. But here they are, beautiful color, delicious, ready to go on my pantry shelves. This day I wanted to make a peach dessert. My husband was cutting out different foods from his diet to test something for his thyroid, actually. So it was a gluten-free, sugar-free, dairy-free peach crisp. I know, a mouthful. So this was something that I wanted to experiment with, and I did follow a recipe for the most part. I will link it in the description box because some of you may be having to eat this way. It can use sweetener of like maple syrup or honey, but I do have coconut flour and almond flour in hand at all times as well, just because they're nice to bake with. Sometimes it's good to just have less gluten, even if you bake with really good flour. And so I use some coconut flour and some almond flour. The gluten-free rolled oats I get worked out really well to have also. But I would have to say this recipe was unique in that the top was a little bit grittier, of course, because almond flour is very grainy, almondy, I guess you'd say. But it still was delicious. My husband appreciated the efforts I went into trying to make a dessert for him because of what he is eating right now. So it still looked delicious. It tasted really good, and the peaches are so sweet and wonderful to have right now anyways. And then it was time for the main meal, which was a meatloaf. And using those fresh garden herbs, a working kitchen, if you don't have fresh herbs, you really should. They're so delicious. Even if it's just a window box or some place where you put a container of herbs in your house or on your deck or something. I do have a larger garden, and so I try to grow different types of herbs. So I use sage and parsley. Was lacking in basil this year, as that did not grow either. So that would have been a delicious one to throw in my meatloaf. But again, I just kind of made up the recipe. I used rolled oats, the gluten-free ones, to thicken the meatloaf, or to hold it together, along with some egg, date, barbecue sauce, delicious. And then I cut up some fresh tomatoes in there, added some salt and pepper and some Worcestershire, some onion, some garlic, and it really was just quite delicious. And then a Primal Kitchen barbecue sauce that we used because it was clean. So there it is, baked, a really nice food to have. And guess what? We got some more sweet corn from some friends, 3 large boxes. So this week, like I had said, the working kitchen was in full swing. I had help from my kiddos. My husband helped as well. I spent a good 5 hours canning that evening. the whole house was steaming up because of having 2 stock pots boiling on the stove for 5 hours straight. But hey, it's a blessing to get sweet corn given to you or get food given to you. Anyway, there's our meal: the sweet corn meatloaf, fresh green beans, and some Azure standard crinkle cut fries. And the dessert, I am showing it with you with some homemade ice cream though as well. So delicious meal. And into the evening it rolls as I work on my sweet corn. And I just, again, think it's so great to have such fresh food on hand for the future. What a blessing to be able to have a stockpile of different produce items in our pantry or in our deep freeze. And I'm so grateful for people who are willing to share. I enjoy growing it myself, but I definitely cannot grow all of ours. So self-sufficiency is not what I have, but a community sufficiency that we can share and is such a blessing to have, and especially for the times right now because things are so expensive, food especially. So I just feel so blessed, and hopefully you can preserve some food from your working kitchen this year too.